It's Wednesday, and that means it's time for another episode of the Closer's Inner Circle podcast, hosted by your partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and together with my co-host, Ben Gay III, we're diving into the world of sales mastery with the Gem from the Closers Part 2. And if you haven't heard me say this before, you've heard me. These books, 1 and 2, are widely known across the globe as the sales Bibles. And today is a continuation of the past 5 shows, count them, 5, where Ben and I open up the second longest chapter in the book called I Gotta Do It, and Another Thing. I love that title. So today, I do, it's just fun to say. So today we are opening up on page 237. And if you don't already have these books in your entrepreneurial library, Ben will share where you can buy them at the end of the show. Ben, good morning. It's Wednesday. Did I say that already?
I don't remember. I was so intrigued by your beautiful accent and voice that I drifted off.
Oh, no,
Uh,
you're just picking at me. I always tell you I don't have an accent. I have a drawl.
yeah,
That's
right. And
different.
for our listeners, she's wrong about many things. That's one of them.
Oh, oh. Now I'm going to have to just sit here and hang my head. You do all the talking. Go. Start talking.
Well, I do have a question that came in that I thought, God, we should have covered that. It may be in a book somewhere, but I don't think so. Uh, he said, you've talked about hired gun selling. What exactly is that? And I suspect if he's heard me talk about it, then he knows a little more than he's admitting in his question. But here's what he's talking about. Years ago on television, I don't think it was ever on radio, there was a television series starring Richard Boone called Paladin. And Paladin was a guy who came to town and solved problems. And
Have gun
he
will travel.
exactly
I
is
have the
on.
series. I bought them.
I didn't know there was a series,
Yeah, you can buy them
but
on DVD.
but he that was what was printed on his business card. Paladin, San Francisco, California. Have gun, will travel. And the good news is, we're not promoting violence. I don't think he ever killed anybody, and he never came to town and killed the bad guys. He uh, persuaded them to go elsewhere or
Yes, he
stop their activities or whatever. But I just always loved that. And then when I got into selling, I realized that we had many paladins among us who were capable of selling just about anything. Most of them, fortunately, would not. I've been told, you could sell snow to an Eskimo. I said, well, I guess I could, but I don't and I won't. They don't, there are many things on earth they need. Snow is not one of them. So I wouldn't sell. But I get the point. In other words, what we're saying is if you're a good salesperson, have sales skills will travel. And that takes the same concept and puts it into what we're talking about when you and I are together all the time, selling, effective professional selling. And the example that I give and probably gave when he heard that was I have several people who do it now, lots of people, clients and friends and mentees. But it started with a guy in Atlanta in the home improvement business. I hope he's listening. I won't give his name, but he knows who I'm talking about, who worked for Hugh Harris, one of the great salesmen who ever lived, who is busy running restaurants now in the South, starting in Ringgold, Georgia. And Hugh ran one of the largest home improvement companies in the world, and this guy worked for him. And Hugh and the guy were going at each other because the young man was born into a family with some money. He had to earn his own, but he was used to traveling the world and seeing new things and not being tied down in any one place, which doesn't exactly fit in with a home improvement company based in Atlanta or one of their satellite offices. It could have been anywhere in the Southeast. because you want them there at 9 in the morning and running leads and blah, blah, blah. And one day when I was talking to I think the two of them on the phone, I really don't recall, I thought of Paladin. And I said, Hugh, what we have here is a young man who has sales skills and he likes to travel and he doesn't want to be tied down. Long story somewhat shorter, I pinned down where he liked to be and what seasons. And basically what he's trying to do was avoid extreme heat or cold. And Atlanta has two of those. But they have a nice spring and nice early summer and so on. And he liked to be in the north in the summer to escape the heat. We have a farm in Franklin, North Carolina that the family bought years ago, and the reason was part of our family was based in Florida. And when the Florida summer came along and air conditioning wasn't as common as it is now, we would flee to the farm in North Carolina in Franklin in the Smoky Mountains and enjoy that. Well, people who have jobs have a problem doing that. Not if you're a salesperson, a professional salesperson, because you have sales skills and will travel or can travel. So here's the point boiled down. Let's say that you like to winter in Arizona, you're a snowbird, and you like to summer in Michigan, just picking out two places. Then here's what you do. If you're with a big company that is in both places, problem solved. If you have sales skills, understand people get very cooperative with you because many of us don't have sales skills, and those of us who do, we have a very valuable commodity. It's like in public speaking, people say to me, "How do you get so much money for giving a talk?" Well, I enjoy being on stage, rather be on stage than in my living room talking to close friends. 15,000, 20,000 people just really turn me on. And the number one psychological fear, psychologists tell us, is public speaking ahead of death by fire. So the answer to the question, how do I get paid so much to speak in public and other people get even more than I do, and everybody gets more than they ought to probably, is I'm performing something other people can't do or aren't willing to do or are afraid to do. Same with selling. So if you go to a company in the XYZ city and say, here's my closing rate minus 86%, here's my closing rate almost everywhere I've been, and I'm looking to move here 6 months out of the year, and I'd like to work for you those 6 months out of the year. I come to town, you give me the leads, I'll generate some on my own, etc., and I'll go sell for you. And don't get all teary-eyed when I go to Michigan in the summertime, because I have a deal up there just like this one. And so when I'm in town, we both profit. I'll help train other people while I'm with you, and we all benefit. But you do not have the right to me 12 months out of the year. Fair enough? And if they're convinced of your sales skills, they will, to a person, say, fair enough, we'll do it. So his point in his question was, what's the hired gun selling about? Have sales skills, will travel. You get to pick where you live. You don't have to wait till you're 89 and retired to move to Phoenix. If you can sell, you can move to Phoenix 6 months out of the year or 4 months out of the year or whatever, starting probably 2 weeks from now after you get on the phone and on the computer and do a little research. And by the same token, you can be back in your hometown the rest of the year or what have you. And you're also not arguing about time off anymore. You can take off the time you want by setting up your schedule in advance. I'm going to be here 5 months out of the year. I'm going to be here 5 months out of the year. That leaves 2 months that you haven't pledged to be anywhere. Travel for pleasure. But hired gun is what this young man and Hugh Harris and I worked out. And I've replicated it, duplicated it with numerous people to their great joy. And of course, that's true of if you're someplace you don't like, you can move 12 months out of the year. Again, sales skills will travel. So that answers his question, I hope. And then we had a comment that I thought was worthy of mention. The someone who's been listening to us and watching how we work with the closers part 2 now, and we're not going to run out of material. We have the closers part 1 and 2 and 3, and you're about to publish part 4, and 5 is already done, and 6 is underway. So we're never going to run out of material to use. But what he was referring to was, and as a young salesperson, sales manager, VP of sales, and then president of several large sales companies, I wish I'd known this sooner, because one of the great problems people have when they're sales managers or VP of sales or what have you is, what am I going to talk about now? I told them last week, ask for the order. What am I going to tell them this week? Well, here's how you do it. Here's how you get your sales training department in a box. And you can do it, so I don't sound too crass and commercial. You can do this with any good material. Zig has excellent material. The material, Zig's gone, but the material is still available. I personally am a little preferential, prejudiced to the Closers series. The Closers Part 1 is the best-selling, most powerful, most popular book on sales training ever written, bar none. Everybody knows that. And the Closers Part 2 is a better book, but it's not as exciting. Closers Part 1, I've had people say, I felt like I shouldn't have been reading it. It tells you things you shouldn't even talk about out loud. And so on, the Closers Part 2 shows you what sophisticated people really do with that raw information. Closers Part 3 goes into different things, and yours is going to be on the importance of podcasting and so on. But it doesn't make any difference. I could shut my eyes, reach over to my little book divider where the Closers series are, and grab any one of the books there. And I now have sales training meetings, depending on the book I pick up, for probably 2 years. Already done. All I got to do is get a copy of that book in the hands I'm going to be teaching, of the people I'm going to be teaching, and give them a week's warning. Next week we're going to be discussing buy a pair of scissors on page 238 of the Closers Part 2. Doesn't sound exciting, but it actually is, and it's a very effective technique. So you've got a week to read it, to think about it, to come up with things to ask about it, and so on. Thank you very much. See you next week. There's a sales training department in a box with a different subject every day or every meeting. Denise, you and I have talked about it. William Penpatrick, the owner and chairman of the board of Holiday Magic, when I became president of the company at age 25 and could barely find the bathroom, never mind running a international multi-million, soon multi-billion-dollar sales operation. He said, Ben, set up a training program for us. I didn't know what a training program was. But if I'd had what we're talking about right now, and I did. I had lots of sales books. I'm not sure I'd read many of them, but I had them. If I just had that bit of information, I could have said, sure, sir, no problem. Instead, I went to Earl Nightingale and got him to be the voice of our company, and we played his records. Back then, the records are coming back, I'm told, but we played his records in sales meetings and then discussed them. That was our sales training department in the beginning. So this is sort of a cousin of that. Take somebody else's material that's prepared, give them a warning to what's coming next week or next meeting or tomorrow. Give them a warning, and then discuss it and learn from it and expand on it and have them ask questions. So if you have the Closers Parts 1, 2, 3, soon 4, 5, etc., you have a sales training department in a box. You just need to get a copy of the book in everybody's hand, the book you're going to use to start with, in everybody's hands. And here's a good idea. You read that chapter also before you discuss it. I've had people get up in front of the room to discuss XYZ book, and within seconds, it became evident to me they'd never read the book. They didn't know what was in it. So it's when you were in school, your first grade teacher, your fifth grade teacher, your history teacher, here's their little secret. They read what they were going to teach you today, yesterday, and they stayed. I've had friends who were teachers. They said the trick is to stay one page ahead of the students at all times, because we're singing or learning from the same hymnal. So it's, and somebody else has done all the work. All you have to do is get familiar with it, and you look like a genius.
And
Okay,
I'm
that's
so
the
glad
question,
you
hired gun, and that's the comment.
thank you. And I'm so glad you brought up the comment because as you know, I mean, you and I met because I have your books and you've been on my show multiple times over the years. And now, of course, we have our own show, thank goodness. But I have, and I say this a lot, hundreds of books in this room where I am. I've got a corner desk. It's an L shape. So this little area is where I live practically. The rest of this room is books and a futon. So I can take my book over there and go, ooh, let me get comfortable.
Get
I'm,
comfortable.
yeah, I'm going to have to lay down to read this one. But I, and I'm shocked by this, Ben. I'm always surprised. And I've heard it many, many times. People will either go to they'll leave a review on the podcast page, or they'll say to me in person, Denise, you read the book. Well, of course I did. You gave me the book. It was a gift. I am honored and duty bound to read that book and then review it. I don't take gifts lightly. I don't take
Mhm.
the giving and receiving of these books. And I've had way too many people from my comfort say, we send the books out and nothing happens. We can tell that the host did not crack that book. That's heartbreaking to me, and it's wrong. If you accepted that book and you're a host, you better darn read it. You hear me? I'm telling you right now, read the book.
Yeah, at least, if it's Gone with the Wind or Birth of a Nation, might be a little thick. At least read enough of it with your highlighter pen to mark up the things that you want to talk about and that you want to ask them about and so on. Then if it's good material, it'll suck you in. You'll read the whole book. You won't be able to stop. While we're talking about reading, this is sort of off subject, but not really. I talk about, well, so-and-so said this, or Winston Churchill said this, or Socrates said this, and so on. They say, where do you get all that material? Well, I read. It would be one thing. I'm given several books a week for review from various people. I'm sort of on their uh, list of reviewers and endorsers and so on. And here's my secret. People say, I don't have time to read. Of course you do. If I followed you around with a clipboard, I'd find 2 or 3 hours in your day that you could be reading. The trick is to have it handy. You're talking about you're sitting in a room full of books within reach. I'm literally looking around. To my right on a credenza, ahead of me on the computer desk, to my left in another little section uh, where there are, it looks like 12 or 13 books. I am within arm's length of 40 books that are really important to me. I could reach any one of them without standing up or doing anything overt. If you go into my bathroom, please don't, you'll find a stack of books,
Now it's in
probably
my head. I've got that picture. Sorry.
you'll find a stack of books at any time, probably 15 books high. New ones go on the bottom unless there's something really unique about them, in which case they go to the top or near the top. Go in my bedroom, you'll find a stack beside the bed. Uh, in uh, in the office, they're here, but the ones within reach I was talking about are books I've read or written or what have you. But over at my other desk, regular human desk, there's pardon me, a stack there. And then I keep 4 or 5 books in the back seat of the car in case I'm stuck somewhere. And I never go into a doctor's office or whatever without taking one of them with me, and my yellow highlighter pen and a regular pen for marking them up and so on. My point being, you can't read if you don't have them. If you have them within arm's reach most of the day, you've just added 2 or 3 hours a day to your educational time. Dr. Hill, one time, Napoleon Hill, he and I were working on my daily success system, and he said, how much time do you plan for family? I said, well, I fit family in the nooks and crannies. He says, we found the problem. And he was on his third marriage at the time, I think. We found the problem. What we're going to do is put the business in the nooks and crannies. Family comes first. I've learned, he said. And
I bet.
yeah, and then block that time out. So you design it where you design your day and your life where you decide what you do at any given time, including reading, studying, what have you. But to do that, it just must simply be available. If when you get out of the car to go in the doctor's office, you can reach in the back seat and pick up the next book in that proverbial stack. It's not usually a stack in the back seat, that they tend to spread out, and have your yellow highlighter. I was waiting for Gigi at the doctor's office the other day and knocked out 3 chapters of a book that I've been meaning to read, and it was in the back seat. And that's probably my least used stack because I'm driving frequently, and driving and reading are probably not a good idea. But
No,
it's
no.
available with me. So plan your day out, plan your life out where those times arrive and are available to you. And when I said
Right.
to Dr. Hill about the family thing, I said, I barely have time to do what I'm doing now. How am I going to? He said, because he had just told me he wanted me to take a day, a week off. And at the time, that made a lot of sense. I lead a little more relaxed life now, but he was afraid I was going to run myself in the ground and have a heart attack. So he said, take a day, a week off. Friday, Wednesday, give a 3-day weekend. Wednesday, break up the week. Any way you want to do it, but pick one. And so I did. And I said, well, we'll give it a try. But I don't understand. I'm almost out of time now. And he said, Ben, the work expands to fit the time allowed. I know you've heard that. But what you must not have heard is the work contracts to fit the time allowed. You can get everything done in 4 days that you're currently getting done in 5 days, plus parts of the weekend and so on, and driving yourself crazy. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but the gist of it was, I could really get you nuts and tell you I've followed you around, I've lived in your house and so on. Uh, I could get your work week down to 3 days a week, except for travel and giving speeches. I mean, there's certain things where you have to be there and you have to be in a certain place. But time wise, 3 days a week would handle everything I've ever seen you do if you did it intelligently and aggressively and so on, which he then taught me how to do. And it was true. For years, I only worked, of the 5 work days, I only worked 3, and it worked just fine. So,
But that allowed space when you weren't having to, hit this target or be in this meeting or do it. And I have to tell you, when you said he could take it down to 3, I kind of shuddered. It was like, what do I do with the rest of the time? Workaholics, we don't know anything different.
yeah,
But my next thought, smack on the heels of that first thought, was, oh, I could do this. I could build this. I don't necessarily want to go anywhere, but my creativity would go, hey, Denise, what do you think about this? I would
and
have time to be creative.
right. And on those days off, quote unquote, have your memo pad with you, because your mind doesn't stop because you
No,
decide to take Wednesdays off. So have your memo pad handy, and probably by Thursday, you'll have filled up Thursday with Wednesday's thoughts. But and it's for our listeners, well, how would I do that? You get yourself a calendar. Denise and I use the standard diary daily reminder.
yeah, daily. Yep. It's on
Yeah,
my desk.
and from Acco, I don't know how to pronounce it, ACCO brands. And the way you do it is you block out time. You don't have to construct what you're not going to do on Wednesdays. You just don't write anything on Wednesdays. So everything, when somebody says, well, I want to meet and talk with you and so on, fine. Would Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday be better? Whatever. You decide where they go. I, believe it or not, was a consultant to a barber chain for a while, and people were complaining about all the wasted time they had. And I said they shouldn't have any wasted time. When somebody calls in to make an appointment, you make it early Monday morning, early someday, but let's use to keep it simple, early Monday morning. When somebody else calls, you say, well, I've got an opening at 11 o'clock on Monday. Somebody else calls, I have an appointment at 12 o'clock on Monday, and so on. So you block out your time and you build your day. It'll all fit in 4 days. I don't know how we got off on the 4-day concept. I really don't care how often you work. I'm just telling you what's possible. You build your day. I had someone, I guess just early this morning or late yesterday afternoon, want me to do a podcast on Wednesday. I said, well, Wednesdays I generally don't do podcasts except the one with Denise Griffitts, so it's going to have to be on some other day. Well, we record on Wednesdays. Well, good for you.
Denise comes first, darn it.
Yeah, Denise comes not only first, but only.
Hey, that's even
So,
better.
but that's me determining what my life and day and week and month and year looks like. And I encourage that all the way down to reading, sales training. I'd like to read a book on how to be successful in selling. Put aside 20 minutes a day, write it in your calendar, have the book you want to read handy, pick it up, hit the timer, and read for 20 minutes. At the end,
Exactly.
they used to talk about when cassettes first came out, cassette tapes. I hate to say that's no longer a new idea, it's an old idea, but when they first came out about
My
19,
Zig Ziglar tapes I have. I
yeah.
picked them up at a garage sale for 50 cents because I didn't know. I didn't even have a cassette player, but I didn't know what a Zig Ziglar was. I had to know.
You'd get a kick out of that. Well, when Earl swapped over from records, which is The Strangest Secret and Lead the Field and all the stuff he did, the complete speaker, all the early stuff he did, those were all on records. When they swapped over to cassettes, he said in the video of The Strangest Secret, it was one of the most important things ever invented by man or woman. I don't know who invented it, but because it took your car or anywhere you were and made it a university on wheels. There was
Oh,
no longer any excuse for
right,
not learning. And then he
right.
went on, I forget the math, but if you listen an hour a day, it was going to be wasted anyway. By the end of the year, you could be recognized as a worldwide expert on that subject. So how am I going to start? Where do I go?
Right,
Get
right.
a calendar and plan out your day, your life, your week, your month. And
Exactly.
it
And
makes life so much easier. And
it
then
does. It
this
does.
morning when we
It
woke up,
absolutely does.
Jesus said, "Do you have any podcasts or anything today?" And I said, "Well, uh, my normal answer to that, as you know, is I don't know. I've checked my calendar. It's the reason my calendar, by the way, never leaves my office. If I lost my calendar, I'm done. I run my life out of it. But I said, because it's Wednesday, yes, Denise. But so I don't have to go look. But short of that, I take the important hourly events from my calendar, put them on a little memo pad sheet, and I stick them on the bathroom mirror. So when I get up in the morning, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm looking over, okay, Denise at 10, uh, feed the fish. I have a fish pond and so I feed them on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I think it is. I know it's Wednesdays and so on. There's the things that I have to do so I don't have to go to the office to find out what I'm supposed to do. But you just plot it out, systematize it. Almost, as you know, working with me, almost everything I do is systematized. I don't have to think about anything. Check the
Exactly.
calendar.
Exactly. And moving a little back to where you were talking a few minutes ago, books. You have to read. You have to read. I don't understand how people can't. Yeah, they'll say, "Oh, I don't like to read." What? What is wrong with you? But here's the thing. I mean, now you can have your books are on a Kindle. They can be on your phone. I've got two iPads. I run the batteries down on those every single day because I'm searching, I'm reading some more. What I like to do is I prefer to have a physical book, but I also, if I can, go get the Kindle book because you can, notebook those. I mean, you can do all kinds of wonderful things in Kindle. And then if it's available on Audible, I'll go get it there. So I have three ways of consuming books,
Mm-hmm.
and I take advantage of all of them.
The it is just amazing, and this is not a breakthrough in thinking, but most people don't think about it on a regular basis. It's amazing what's already done. Every idea, every concept, uh, except for brand new inventions, and they stand on the shoulders of the people who went before them. So even brand new inventions, it's been written down and or recorded and or videoed, and it's available to you in this amazing time on your phone, through your car radio series or whatever it's called, uh, through your desktop. It's all available to you. So one of my opening lines in many seminars, and some people have criticized it till they figured out what it means. I said, Lewis and Clark were sent out by President whatever. I forget who sent them out, Lincoln, Jefferson, somebody, to find out what America was, what is there here. And they came back with a report. And I said, in a similar manner, I would have been sent out by numerous clients to figure out why people succeed and why they don't succeed, not unlike Carnegie sending Dr. Hill out many years ago. Go, here's 500 people, go talk to them and find out what the common denominator of success is and failure, because they tend to know both. And so he did and I did. But what I say in seminars is I was asked to find out why some of you are successful and some of you aren't, and why somebody here hits their monthly quota in 3 days and somebody else never hits their monthly quota. And I've studied it and I researched and I've made notes and I have the answer. It's you.
It is.
It's you. It's all there. So it's you. You want to find out the secret of life, oversimplified, but nevertheless, the secret of life runs about 30 minutes. It's called The Strangest Secret. It was recorded by Earl Nightingale in 1956. You can get it on Audible, audio, cassette, record. I have my original record that was given on September 15, 1965, right here. My hand is on it as we speak. It's all been written down and is available to you, but you have to take action. The great salesperson in your organization who you envy um, probably has read and studied things you haven't read or studied, and gone to seminars and taken notes, and then got up the courage to act on that information. You can do that too.
Well, you have to stay curious. Without curiosity and the willingness to go hunt for information, you're not going to get too far if you get in anywhere at all.
Absolutely.
All right, you talked about buy a pair of scissors. We were going to open up to 237, but I realized we pretty much covered that one. So I'm on page 238, buy a pair of scissors. Let's talk about that because this is a great part of the book.
Well, I just sent you a book that you expressed interest in called Wamish. Why are you making it so hard for me to give you my money? Is what Wamish stands for. Written by a group of us, but under the tutelage of Ray Considine, one of my early mentors and favorite people on earth. He's gone on to his great reward now, but he was a master at it. And in the book, I don't know why, I refer to him as a friend from Pasadena, California. Well, here I'll reveal that was Ray Considine. And what Ray was a master at doing was staying in front of you. Uh, you you, if you were a friend of his, you couldn't go 3 or 4 days without thinking of Ray Considine because he called you, or you remembered something he taught you, or you got a thing in the mail and they always look like they were written in a speeding car. And I've seen him do it in speeding cars. So that's the reason it looked that way. He carried with him, he had his address book, of course, in those days, not a computer, but whatever. He had his address book, he had blank envelopes, he had stamps, and so on. And when he would see something, he categorized people. Uh, on the back of my business card, I'm making up things because I don't know what he wrote, but it was probably number 1, salespeople, number 5, personal development, number whatever. He categorized me and everybody else he met into groups. Then when he saw an article or something of interest to salespeople, all of the people with 1 written on the back of their card got it. And what he did was, if he was on the road, he found an interesting article, he would get out his scissors, his penknife, and cut it out.
Oh,
If he wasn't going to be back in the office in a few days, he would go to a copy center or an office supply place, and he would run off the appropriate number of copies and of that article or that thought or whatever it was, and then he would address them. They were always hand addressed. They always had a stamp on them, not a postage meter. And the stamp, this is an old direct mail marketing secret, but the stamp was always slightly askew, not squared away like some of us would like to have everything in life squared away. It was always slightly askew, which subconsciously tells the recipient this was done by a human.
a real person. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the who wasn't perfect, but this is literally to me and to no one else. And his the blank envelopes did have his name and return address already printed on it. So all he had to write was your name, your address, etc. Slap a stamp on it, slightly askew. I only use the forever stamps, American flag. So that also says I'm a good guy, I'm an American, I'm a patriot. Every letter I send to anybody or note, slightly askew, forever, what I call a flag stamp, American flag. And he would then driving along. I talked to him many times driving in the car, both of us sitting in the back seat, and he was talking and listening, but he was addressing envelopes. And the first time we hit a place where it was safe to mail, the hotel front desk, a mailbox, whatever he had done in that period of time, 10, 15, 20 envelopes would go into the mail. So if you were one of his buddies, 4 or 5 times a month, probably, you got something that would be of interest to you. And all he wrote on them was usually on the face of the copy, enjoy,
Oh,
exclamation mark, or thought
right.
you'd find this interesting or something. And you'd think, whoa, Ray thought of me. Well, it's true. In the book, I call it programmed warmth. He did think of you. He thought of you when he wrote the information about you on the back of your business card. But after that, you were part of his system. And it worked so well. And I got a call one day from Chris, his son. He said, "Man, this is Chris Considine." I said, "Oh, I'm not going to like this call," because Chris and I were not close friends. I think I'd only met him once or twice. So he had no reason to call me unless it was to pass on bad information. Well, it was that Ray had died. So I said, I'm not going to like this call, am I? And he said, "No, you're not. Ray had died." So knowing Ray was up in age, he had commented to me one time. He said, "My speaking has slowed down a little bit because everybody I know died, you know, or retired, or people used to hire him." So I was concerned that his funeral, I wanted it to be attended by somebody who cared for him. So I drove when the day came. I drove all night to get to Pasadena, California, so the church wouldn't be empty. And when I checked into the hotel, freshened up, when I walked into the church, it's good that I came at that time because I got the only seat left. And I'm guessing, I'm pretty good at crowds. I'm guessing there were 1,000 people there who all thought they were Ray Considine's best friend.
Oh,
One of the guys who got up and spoke said, until today, I was convinced I was Ray Considine's best friend. He said, so it's a pleasure to meet so many other best friends of Ray.
oh,
We
that is
all,
a lovely story.
oh, yeah, we cheered and clapped and laughed and so on. But by taking a pen, a penknife or a pair of scissors and making himself available to copy machines and doing the things I just talked about, hand address, slightly crooked, uh, stamp on the envelope, he convinced thousands of people all over the world. And I tell you this story, Denise, with this slight attitude of I really was Ray's best friend, but it's nice that he had so many others. Well, I'm telling you, looking back, Ray got me.
Mhm.
I was his best friend when I was sitting in front of him at the moment in my office or my home. I'm confident I was his best friend. When he left, he was back in the car addressing envelopes to his other best friends. So it keeps you in front of your customers. It puts a personal touch on it. You don't send out cooking recipes to the CEO, a male of whatever company who sells steamships. But if you send something about steamships or regulations in the ocean going industry or something, thought you'd find this of interest. You've just risen to the top of his consciousness and you'll stay there for a while and then you need to get him another one within a month or what have you. It is magic.
Well, and it honestly, we talk a lot about common sense or lack thereof. And you said it's part of his system, but it's also common sense. You have to stay in front. You have to say, hey, remember me? Or hey, I thought of you. I am persistently shocked by somebody. I'll be chatting with somebody or I'll get an email and say, Denise, I was in a restaurant yesterday and we were talking about you. And I'm like, oh, geez, why? What have I done now? But then I step back and go, oh, that's nice. Don't tell me what you said, but that's nice. You know, so you'd be surprised. I'm always surprised how often people say, oh, I was just thinking about you. We were just talking about you. Or I'm like, really? Because I'm here in my own little world, doing what I do, not talking to anybody if I can avoid it. And I assume because I'm invisible, nobody ever thinks about me. Well, that's not right. They do. So you need
They
to get
do
very good about being in front of people.
so out of control how many times they think about you and what they think about you.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
glanced down at page 240 and down at the bottom it says, by the way, he sends about 10,000 personally noted articles a year. My God, that's overwhelming. If you gather up some of that scrap time we've been talking about, it's only 28 a day, and you're not having to write anything other than, enjoy or thought you'd find this of interest or whatever. So, and to somebody you regularly deal with, I remember I was talking to Ray one day and I said, well, what if you're somewhere without my address or something? And he smiled, opened up his briefcase. He said, because I send so much stuff to you, look at this. And he handed me, I'm quoting from memory, but 10 or 12 personally addressed envelopes to me, already had the crooked stamp on them, already had my name and address. So he gathered up scrap time to pre-address envelopes for articles. He didn't even know what they were yet, but he knew he was going to send some of them to me because I was deeply embedded in his stay in contact system. And it's one of the reasons that people just loved Ray. The first time Gigi met Ray Considine, we went out to dinner and she instantly fell in love with him. When you get your book, you'll see a picture of him. It's a younger one, but you'll see he was stunningly handsome and carried himself like a movie star. Told you about the yellow door, Considine, and doors opened.
I have to tell you, after we got off the show that day, I walked around yelling "Considine" at my cats, and they're like, "What?" That was a new one.
Well, he when dinner was over, she said to me privately, "What does Ray do?" I said, "What do you mean, what does he do? He's Ray." He was such a brand that, if he called me up and said, "I'm representing something," I would probably have said, "Send me one,"
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, because he had become the brand. If he put his stamp of approval on something, then it was going to be good, or he wouldn't have bothered you with it. So brand yourself, learn the tricks of the greats, the techniques and the systems of the greats, and brand yourself. So when somebody thinks about, we need a speaker to do so, in their mind pops up, if they're one of my clients, Ben Gay. He might be one of them. I may not get the job or want the job or whatever, but I know my name will pop up. We need to get our people to sell more. Ben Gay. I know the guy. I know the books. I know the page numbers, et cetera. You want to become that person. Extract yourself from the crowd. Picture the Pope addressing a huge crowd of people. You don't want to be part of the huge crowd. You want to be the one that glows, that the spotlight is on, so that when they think of, I need or I need some advice or whatever, you're the one that pops up. And this one, probably not one of the more famous chapters or sections in the book, is probably among the most valuable, because it's an inexpensive way to become a superstar to some of your clients. Doesn't change the world, but you don't need to change the world. You need about 100 people who think of you when they want to buy something.
And if you're a personality, and I'm thinking now of my friend Jim Tunney, known as the dean of NFL referees. And while I'm listening to you talk about how you set yourself apart, I don't know that he ever did this deliberately, but for many, many years, I don't think he does it as much now in the past year or so, but he had certain hours of the day set aside. He would be in contact with people who were on the field with him, with NFL greats, with, he and I'm trying to think of his name. He was a coach that passed away a few years ago.
Bear Bryant.
No,
Oh.
and I can see him in my head. Uh,
Vince Lombardi.
no, but he did know Vince Lombardi. It'll come to me. It's
Yep.
the Dolphins. Who was the coach of the Dolphins forever?
Don Shula.
Yes, they were best friends for years and years and years. And he was heartbroken when he called him Shula when Shula passed away. But he would call me every day. And I'd say, who you been talking to today? And I'd get a list of, oh, I know that name. Oh, I know, ooh. And I felt like I was, kind of hanging around with the greats because he was.
And you were, and he became a superstar in your mind
Oh, yeah,
by staying
today.
in
Yes.
contact, not
Yeah.
being annoying,
No, never.
staying in contact.
No, he's one, I've always said this. I've got maybe 5 favorite people in the world. You and Jim switch from 1 and 2. It just depends on what's happening that day, but you guys are in the top 2 consistently.
Well, I'm honored, and on behalf of Jim, he's honored also. But
Seriously, my
buried
favorite
beneath
people.
all of that sincerity is one or all of us, consciously or subconsciously, are staying in touch with each other. And that's the secret of get yourself a pair of scissors. Uh, make it don't make it accidental. Don't. I'm guilty of this with some people, and I could justify some of them saying, "Well, we didn't have anything to talk about, and time has marched on." But you don't want to be the person that's happened to me numerous times, where there's somebody you think of, and I'm gonna reach out to them. I haven't talked to them in a long time. Hi, may I speak to Vance? This happened to me with a guy named Vance Powell. Uh, he said, "Well, this is Vance." I said, "Oh, I didn't recognize your voice." He said, "Oh, you're talking about my dad, Vance Powell Sr." And I said, "Yeah, he worked for me." He said, "Oh, you're Ben Gay." Yes. Is Vance there? He said, "Sir, he died 30 years ago."
30?
30. I hadn't
Okay.
seen him since we both left Holiday Magic Cosmetics.
There's a
And
lesson
but
there.
yeah, there really is, and that would not have happened to Ray if only because he got a return address envelope. Uh, Somehow, some way, Ray would have known. He didn't have to wait 30 years for word of a good friend dying to get to him. But it was a sales secret. Tell you a cute Considine story. He's calling on an account for something. I don't remember what the product or service was, and he was in hot competition with another company that sold basically the same thing. So he's coming out of the office of that company one day, and here comes his competitor up the steps. And Ray smiled at him and said, reached in his pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, and he said, "You're about 30 minutes late," and kept going. And the guy turned around, went back to his car, and so on. And I said, "Was that an order you had?" He said, "I don't know what it was. It was in my suit pocket."
That's dirty pool. Like it.
And then when he got the order a few days later, the guy said, "Your competitor never showed up." And Ray said, "That's odd. Why would that have happened?"
Okay, that's just wrong.
Yeah, I can picture him smiling and waving a piece of paper. Didn't say it was an order, but sort of implied. Oh, I'm in Phoenix doing a seminar one day, and I'm up on stage, and I had told Ray, because he was in Phoenix for some reason. And I told Ray, if you want to come by, I'll leave a note at the front desk. They'll let you in for free. And he said, "I don't need a note at the front desk." And was sort of playfully insulted. So I'm up talking. I've been up about 10 minutes, and I look over, and there's Ray leaning up against the wall next to the registration desk inside the room. And I looked at him, and he winked at me. I heard later that the assistant to the owner of the company also spotted him and said, "Sir, there's a guy there who he didn't pay. He just came in the room." And the owner of the company looked over at him, at Ray, and he turned back and he says, "Leave him alone. That guy's been sneaking into rooms longer than you and I have been alive." And so Ray didn't need my letter to get in, and he didn't need anybody's permission to stay because he was Ray.
Ray. Yeah, he was Ray Considine. I'm going to
Because
do it
he,
again today. My poor cats are going to, what is a Considine? Just tell us. So we won't be jumping all the time.
well, we ought to turn it into a noun because he was a unique character.
Neat. Well, we are out of time. So I just made a note that we got through page 237 through 238. What I'd like to do next week is open up page 241, 241. What is it? Be back, be back blues. I can't read my own writing. Be back
That's
blues.
it.
So
Curing the be back blues.
yeah, we'll pick it up there. So tell people where they can find the closers and where they can find information about your mentorship.
Well, they can find the closers, the best place, free shipping, special pricing, etc., all signed and dated, is from a company called Ronzoni Books. And their spot on eBay is stores, stores dot ebay.com /Ronzoni Books, RONZONEBOOKS, all one word, of course, stores.ebay.com Ronzoni Books. And if you're interested in my mentorship program, wherein I do for people what Dr. Napoleon Hill did for me when he was hired to be my mentor in 1967. I was just a kid and he was an older guy. And I'm true to what he taught me and how he taught me. Just drop me an email and say, "I'm interested in the mentoring program." We'll send you out a little thing. No one's going to call you or bug you or anything. We'll send out a little thing that explains how the program works. And that my email is BFG3. B as in boy, actually as in Ben. F as in Frank, G as in gay, the numeral 3 at directcontact.com. Directcon, DIRECTCON.net. And I will send you back the thing that explains how the mentoring program works. And if I've got an opening, perhaps you can join us.
Excellent. And I want to tell people to send us questions. We love answering those questions. Doesn't matter what they, well, it does matter. Keep it clean. We will answer as many questions as you can send us, and we'll be delighted to do so. And if you need to reach me for any reason, if you want to talk about sponsoring this podcast or your partner in Success Radio, if you're interested in being a guest, or if you just have questions about podcasting or websites or social media, because I have a lot of things that happen in this little office, just give me a call, 1-888, it's toll free, 888-719-6711, and we'll do what we can to get you those responses. So Ben, I will see you next week.
Look forward to it.
Me too. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. I had to say it. Bye. Okay, hang on a sec. Now I can't find my little button. There you go.